F sharp, A sharp, revisited.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the final episode of F Sharp A Sharp Revisited. Sad face.
Sad face, tired
Yes.
face.
Tired face. Yeah. Unfortunately, we've decided to bring F Sharp A Sharp Revisited to a close, but we did decide we'd do a positive episode to end on.
Yeah, one final episode to say goodbye, talking about the positives of 2019.
Yeah, because there are plenty of positives to talk about, and you know what? Sometimes you just need to put a smile on your face rather than a not smile, a frown. That's what one of
That's
those
what they're
is.
called.
So yeah, we're going to be talking about the best albums of 2019, starting with some genre awards and then moving on to some best picks and then maybe even a couple of funny moments as well. So yeah,
Let's kick it off with best rock album. First of all, we'll
yes.
start off with some runner-ups.
Yes, so a runner-up that I put forward was Mew by Nooms. And Krautrock pop is a genre we haven't really talked about on this podcast, which is a bit of a shame, but I'm mentioning it now, so
Yeah, better late than never.
better late than never. But this album does it really well. It's filled with groovy riffs, combined with plenty of experimental, noisy flavorings. And it has several tracks which are just catchy as hell. I think it's a great album.
The runner-up that I sort of put forward is "We Are Only Human Once" with the album "The Prettiest Boys in Town," which I believe has less than 100 monthly listeners on Spotify at the moment. So if you feel obliged, maybe go and give them a bit of a listen.
Yeah.
It's a lo-fi pop, very raw and ragged, but clearly full of passion with an obvious amount of talent. Songs on it like Strange and Dearest will definitely get stuck
Yeah.
in your head, and the best way I've heard to describe it is kind of feels like stumbling upon someone's bedroom concert, but you sit outside the door to listen to because it happens to rule.
Yeah, that is a very good description, and it's a great record. But it's not quite our winner. Our
No.
winner is
Her name is Kala with the album Animal Choir, which we did talk about earlier on in the year. It's still up there with its excellent lyrics, its amazing performances, especially from the vocals and the drums.
yeah,
There's great sonic variety throughout the album, which for the length of the album, I think it pretty well justifies its length.
yeah, and it's an effective mix of songs and some gorgeous instrumental tracks as well, which
Yeah,
helps smooth over the listen.
one of the better sort of verging on post rock releases of the year,
Yeah,
I think.
definitely. Yeah,
Well, let's get a bit more specific in the rock genre and talk about the best rock song of the
yes.
past year.
And runner-up I put forward was "Zombie Bastards" by Weezer, which admittedly could have gone into pop as well, but you know what, sue me. I have been singing this chorus all year long. It hasn't left my head. I think it's a great song, and it might be a little bit "We Live in a Society" core, but I like that as well. So,
Sort of,
what are you gonna do?
my runner-up for the category, which we had debate over, I pushed for "Pride Parade" by Russian Girlfriends, which is it's got one of the best guitarists of the year, like very, very striking. It's breakneck drumming, which I've tried to follow at least twice and failed both times. Steamroller vocal performance, and just generally good vibes all around, invoking the celebratory nature of Pride. Very enjoyable track. But our winner is another track we've already talked about this year, hasn't changed. It is Low Slow by Laura Stevenson. This
Yes.
was one of the ones that we did argue about what category genre to put it into. We settled on rock. I I love this track. Laura Stevenson's voice on it has never been better. It's somehow minimalistic yet like layered, which enhances her voice. It's just a very emotional track for
Yeah,
sure.
and I've tried singing that climax. I can't. She definitely has the chops to pull it off as
Yeah,
well. Like, don't understate how great her vocal performance
I
is.
don't intend to. Moving on. Best hip hop album.
Best hip hop album. So our first of our runner ups is Little Sims with Grey Area, and this sees Little Sims really honing her talents as a hip hop artist. I think. I mean, you wouldn't really call this album groundbreaking, but it has a lot of varied songs on it from. The very kind of oriental flavored 101 FM, the orchestral strings on Venom, and also some kind of lighter, smoother tracks towards the latter end of the album. Her flows on it are varied and punchy throughout. So yeah, a good, great hip hop album.
Also, just missing out on the top spot is Epic Beardmen's This Was Supposed to Be Fun, which, while it isn't a comedy album, it still made me laugh more than any other album has this year, with brilliant, varied beats and great flows from the two rappers, which accompany incredibly witty and inspired lyrics. It's a
Yeah,
thoroughly enjoyable
yeah,
listen. I highly recommend
yeah.
it.
The album's called "This Was Supposed to Be Fun." It definitely was, definitely was. But it wasn't quite our winner for best hip hop album. Our winner
Because
was
Joe insisted.
I insisted there existed an addiction to blood by clipping be the winner. And I love me a good Halloween themed album, whether that's Goblin Metal, 19th, 18th century French Revolution vampire power metal.
If we had done a Halloween episode, we would have talked about this album,
Oh,
basically.
absolutely. Because this is horror hip hop, and I think it's fantastic. You know, the descriptions he puts in so many of the songs are just visceral and so chilling. Thinking of songs like "Nothing Is Safe," "The Show," kind of it's so vivid, and his flows are always
Yeah, I
fantastic.
can't remember if we've ever talked about clipping on the show before, but David Diggs is probably the best rapper currently working.
Yeah, certainly on a technical level.
Yeah.
And yeah, there are so many quotable moments like, oh, he did.
Oh, he did.
He did. But yeah, there's so many great tracks. I've already said Nothing Is Safe, Club Down, The Show, Blood of the Fang, Story 7. I think when Halloween comes around again, it's going to be one of those albums that's going to be popping into my mind as something to put on.
Yeah, I think any time of year I'll be listening to this album. It's an
Yeah.
excellent album. Not sure about the final track on it, but this
We,
is a
we,
positive
yes,
episode.
we're
We
going
won't
to
mention that.
we're going to ignore the final track.
More specific again, best hip hop song.
Best hip hop song. So one of my runners up was actually from Clipping's album, Club Down, because Clipping's flow on this song is as good as ever. His lyrics are intense and descriptive, and the backing is made from this ominous bass and distorted screaming sounds, which really thrusts it into this chilling. I wouldn't even call it an atmosphere. It's too dense. It's so dense. It's claustrophobic the way it makes me feel, and I think it's one of those experimental hip hop tracks that just absolutely nails what it's going for.
Well, I pushed for the next runner up. It was originally going to be Venom by Little Sims, which great track.
Oh yeah,
Probably the
absolutely.
better track, but I kind of just wanted to include Hobo Johnson. I'm hoping half of you have probably switched off the podcast at this point. I Want a Dog by Hobo Johnson, I think, is one of the best closing tracks of the past year. It makes me feel
Yeah,
like, for a start, Hobo Johnson's sophomore album that was released over the past year was much better than his first. I think his next album could be amazing if he keeps on the track. And I Want a Dog is it's just perfect for me. The performance on the track is just so very moving, and the message is like, don't lose sight of what is important when chasing your lofty ambitions. It's a very emotional track, and I sing it a lot.
yeah, I concur that it is a very good track. And you know what? There are a lot of people out there who want to diss on Obo Johnson, which I can kind of understand. But I feel like this is a moment where we can say, "Fuck you, we
Yeah,
like this. It's good."
yeah. Let's move on.
Yes, because our winner for best hip hop song is Hedges by Epic Beardmen, which for me was I mean it was a very good album, but the highlight for me was Hedges because it's such an intelligently constructed narrative. It's essentially a song about paranoia between two neighbors who just mistrust each other, and you hear both of their perspectives and how they both make assumptions that are wrong in their own way, and it leads to this tense situation towards the end that really could have been avoided if
Yeah,
there was just a
it's
better culture between them.
yeah, Riley humorous and just very quotable as well, I think.
Oh yeah,
And
definitely.
lovely brooding backing to it really amps up the tension of the situation.
Yeah, like there are some lines where that I just can't help but sing along to, like "Don't tell me how the outside world works. I've killed there." It's such an impactful moment, and
Yeah.
there's one that I know you like a lot as well. So
No, we'll come to it
we'll
later.
get to
We'll
that.
come to
Okay,
it later.
we'll get to that. Right then, moving on, we have Best Electronic Album.
Yes. To start this off, there weren't as many electronic albums this year that I thought were amazing as there have been in previous years, but there were some definite standouts. One
Yeah.
of which is Anoyo by Tim Hecker, which is a candidate for worst album art of the year. Get that out of the way.
Yeah.
Cube Earth.
Yeah.
But it's a true journey of an electronic album, making great use of Eastern instrumentation to just sort of transport you away.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly.
Thoroughly engaging listen.
Yeah, I agree. My runner-up pick was Proto by Holly Herndon, which I understand can be a bit of a Marmite album, but I think there's a lot of good in this album as well. Herndon uses the use of AI to construct passages of music, but for me, it all comes together in this fantastical narrative of another life form taking over and how that's woven both into how the instrumentation works and the lyrics, which I think it just makes the album a complete package for me and a very interesting listen. But it wasn't quite our winner, though. Our winner ended up going to Hakushi Hasegawa, Ni Ni. And, well, it's his debut album, and it comes as an amalgamation of several trends in Japanese music, I would say, from Japanese post-rock, Shibuya Kei, Glittronica, modern jazz. But it comes together in this electronic album that's just zany, catchy.
It's like an explosion of colour.
It really is. It's so chaotic, but it's also quite sweet and saccharine at the same time. And I love music that doesn't really care about the genre limitations. It's just going to go, I'm going to do this, and you're going to enjoy it. So
I was introduced to this by Joe, and it's thoroughly enjoyable. Some of the most fun I've had listening to music all year. It's an album I've gone back to a few times,
yeah,
and I do recommend you listen to.
yeah, very good. So, and it is a debut album. Not many people will have heard of him. So if you like electronic
Get on
music,
that hype train.
yeah, check it out.
Choo
Check it out.
choo.
Well, then, moving on to Best Electronic Song, I've gone from a song from Holly Herndon's album. I picked Eternal because
It's the best song on the album.
it's, I think it's the best song on the album out of the context of the album. So I half agree with you.
It's also the best song on the album in the context of the album, but
Okay,
there we go.
I think the construction of the song is sporadic. It's kind of weirdly architected, which is partly why I love it so much. It songs as though you're. This song sounds as though you're being transported through a computer, and it's just soundtracking you doing that. I'm just gonna leave it there.
Well, I went for "To Be Loved" by Askiel and Aurora has one of my favourite voices currently in music. It's so like haunting. The track itself builds beautifully and swells with these ethereal timbres which match the vocal performance, and it manages to be dramatic yet also serene. I love the sort of the neoclassical elements that sort of surround it on the EP as well. I think it works together really well. Everything is in its right place.
Yeah, awesome. But our winner for Best Electronic Song we have given to Remind You by Flying Lotus. The album itself wasn't that great, but this track and a couple of others did stand out. And I think what stood out to this track for me was how it was based on this one motif and in kind of modern classical style, built up and around this one motif, but in a lush electronic setting that it just layers over itself in such a gorgeous and lovely and serene way that I just loved it.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the better tracks on the album. Definitely one of the more memorable ones. As
Yeah.
that album in general, I don't recall much of. This one has a way of just sort of like getting into your head and like finding a nice little comfy
Yeah.
space to
Yeah.
rest.
Yes. Moving on to Best Prog/Metal Album. The winner up that I've the runner up. Did I say?
You wanted it to be the winner. Let's be honest.
The runner up was Edwin with Shimmer into Nature. Edwin, more like Edwin. My heart with this album. Do you remember that, Nick?
I do.
If I could give an album an award for best riffs as well, it would be this one. It's packed full of so many great ideas that flow effortlessly from one to the next. It's one of those albums that I just enjoy so much getting lost in. I can put it on and just sit back and let it happen to me. And yeah, it's psychedelic prog which engages me throughout, so I love it.
Well, going more into the metal side of it, another one of the runners up we have is Patterns of Mythology by Falls of Rorus, which is a black metal album that lives and dies on its atmosphere, and oh boy, it lives. It masters melody in a way that similar bands fail to, understanding how the tone of the melody is just as necessary as the melody itself. And it's an album which recognises also the importance of emotion over technical ability. There are so many passages in it that just leave me feeling goosebumps all down my arms. It is, it's a black metal album. It's heavy. It might not be for everyone, but I feel like if you are trying to get into heavier genres of music, it might be a decent place to start.
Yeah. Talking about things that gives us goosebumps, our winner, tell us what it is,
It
Nick.
doesn't give me goosebumps, it gives me just never ending dread. The Origin of My Depression by Uboa, which is a lot to talk about. It's bleak,
It's brutal,
it's brutal, harrowing,
definitely.
terrifying, brilliant.
Yeah,
I think we'll talk about it more later.
in a little bit, yeah, definitely. But going on to best prog metal song, runner up. I keep saying runner up. I don't know why.
Edwin has gotten into your head.
He has. But runner up, my runner up that I wanted to put forward is Airplane by Wand. And this has been my therapy song this year. It feels, when I listen to this song, I feel like I'm floating on a cloud. It's got a simple but great bass line, which is added onto by lovely, serene vocals. And there are bits of noise and guitar work which comes in and out of the song just to kind of ease up and down the momentum when needed. It's a lovely 8 minutes, and I always enjoy listening to it.
Like you're floating on an aeroplane, I think.
Potentially, yeah.
Well, also runner up, completely the opposite. We have Ubo again with an Angel of Great and Terrible Light, and we agreed it's difficult to pick one track off of the album as the album should be listened to in full.
Yeah,
Also, a song that should be best listened to with its precursor track, Please Don't Leave Me. Any expectation of respite after the sonic hell of that previous track are absolutely dashed as the song becomes less and less hopeful as it progresses, building at this masterfully steady pace, while the steady beat of the drum trudges ever onward into this eternal gloom. The soundscape is really unreal and hellish. Like it enchants you with this hypnotic tuned percussion, and then it worms its way into your brain with this industrial noise in the background. It's really quite an unnerving experience.
yeah. But it wasn't quite our winner for best prog metal song. Our winner is Lux Aeterna by Motorpsycho. It may be heavily inspired by King Crimson, but you know what? I'm not going to complain. Not going to complain. It's still great. The choruses are epic. The riffs are good. The solos are great, and I mean the drumming.
The drumming is probably best of the year. I can't think of
Probably,
anything
yeah.
better.
Probably, yeah. I mean,
It's like if you got the drummer of Jethro Tull and the drummer of Yes, and you like made them give birth, and then you pump that baby full of steroids.
yeah, and not only it's not only that the drumming itself is great, the way it's embedded within the texture of the song and how the different passages connect with each other just makes it such an integral part of why it's such an enjoyable experience
It
for
never
me.
feels like it's showy or overbearing. It's
Yeah,
just so embedded.
yeah, but it's still showy. It's great.
But it's
Like if
still showy.
you, it's amazing. It's a fantastic song. Heavily recommend it.
On to the next category: best jazz slash modern classical slash chamber pop album. Oh God,
See, this is what happens when we try to condense our genres.
yeah, three genres that aren't really the same in
No.
any way. But what can you do?
What can you do? We still got our runner-ups and winners, and first
You're
runner-up,
gonna hear them.
you're gonna hear about them. First runner-up is Arrival by Fire Orchestra, a band that I very much like. But this album sees Fire Orchestra's band size reduced quite considerably, but they still fill out the soundscapes quite effectively with more moody atmospheres, a lot of jazz-infused passages, and deranged, almost pagan ritual sounding vocals at times.
I love it.
It's great. Get them to sing at my wedding, perhaps. And while it might be a slightly lengthy album, I think it's very easy to get swept up in the moody, deranged atmosphere that it produces.
Well, talking of lovely vocals, next runner-up we have is Kishi Bashi with Omoyari.
Something like
Omoyari.
that.
Don't want to butcher the pronunciation, but there we go. It's I'd say about this album, it's a pastoral album with an emphasis on acoustics, disguising the themes on the album, which are far darker than you would imagine.
Yeah.
The lyrics touching on the topic of internment camps for Japanese citizens in World War II in a sort of subtle and strangely beautiful way. Kishi Bashi sings beautifully over incredibly lush, folksy arrangements, and it's quite a pleasure to listen to quite a lot of the album, yeah. There's some parts on it which just blow me away, like the opening to Marigolds.
Oh yeah.
Oh, those plucked strings.
And the violin tsunami as well. It's a lot of the string arrangements that absolutely do it for me on that album.
Yep.
But it wasn't quite our winner.
No.
The winner we've picked is Trust in the Life Force of the Deep Mystery by The Comet Is Coming. And this album and this band takes jazz in a completely new direction. There's rock riffs and licks informing the saxophone patterns. There's electronica keyboards and flints influencing the I can barely speak. This is what I get so nervous when I talk about my favourites. They have keyboards and synths influencing the harmonic direction of the album as well. It's such an incredibly interesting atmosphere and sense of music that they create. I genuinely think it's the album this year that is the most groundbreaking, and I'm quite interested to see where they go next with the sound.
But what about Charlie XCX's new album? It's the future of pop music, Joe.
Okay. The listeners didn't know that. The listeners didn't see me roll my eyes there.
They heard the sigh, I'm sure.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on.
Best jazz / modern classical / chamber pop song. Good lord.
I'm so sorry.
Well, while we were talking about the way Kishi Bashi touches on dark subjects through colourful arrangements, so do the Tiger Lilies.
Mm-hmm.
Though the result is completely the opposite, as one is done in utter respect and the other definitely isn't. So, Drugs by the Tiger Lilies, which is catchy, fun, horrible,
debauched.
The only band who can get a group of middle-class individuals to repeatedly shout drugs while singing about someone throwing away their lives to drugs over just some of the happiest sounds of the year.
Do 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 do.
Drugs.
Do 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 do.
Drugs.
It's lots of fun.
It is.
It's lots of fun.
I feel really bad.
I don't. Next runner-up is Summer of 42 by the aforementioned Kishi Bashi. I mean, this song is absolute gorgeousness to me. From the bittersweet love story that it tells, from Kishi Bashi's incredible vocals, especially the falsetto in that bridge with the sweeping strings. Oh, that can wash me away any day of the week. It's a song that has given me emotions like few songs can, and I think it's incredible. But not quite our winner for this category.
No, as much as Joe wishes it was.
We have gone with Super Zodiac by The Comet Is Coming, and I mean, this song is just plain ear candy. It's sonic ear candy. The rush of saxophone riffs in the chorus with those modal harmonies from the keyboard.
Yes. I think it's the closest that the band come on the album as well to really just being big show-offs, which I love.
Yeah,
like everything on it just combines so well. The saxophone on that song is just so energetic. It just pumps into you.
Oh, it's an absolute party
with the drums as well, which just don't relent at all.
Drums are fantastic. It is a fantastic song. Highly recommend you all check it out.
Best Alternative Album is next.
Hmm.
This is another category where we had some discussion over what should go into it and what should go into others. So, first up, we've got Glenn Hansard, This Wild Willing, which is sort of quite a folksy album.
Yeah,
One of the most gorgeously arranged albums of the year for sure.
absolutely.
The album was partly created on the fly during the recordings, which I think shows, though not in a negative way. It's quite exciting to listen to. It's brilliantly textured with this pitch perfect production. It just feels very warm.
Yeah.
Very, very, very high recommendation on that one. We also have another folksy album, The Young Guns, with the ballad of Johnny Langstaff, which is a folk trio which primarily sing a cappella in three-part harmony. And a fan at one of their shows told them about his father and suggested they might be able to write a song about him based on his life. So naturally, they wrote an entire album about him. It's just got some of the best storytelling I've heard in an album. It's hilarious, it's heartbreaking, and it's completely overflowing with spirit.
Awesome. But our winner for Best Alternative Album is Zeal by King's Kaleidoscope.
Whoop whoop!
Whoop whoop. Throw everything you know about Christian rock music out the window because this album is deeply filled with personal struggle and an intricate relationship with his faith. It's amazingly varied as well, from the rock beginnings with electronica touches to the more orchestral arrangements in the latter portion of the album. I think it's just all round fantastic.
Something here for everyone.
For
And I
everyone.
think in a more niche genre, it's probably the most groundbreaking album this year.
Yeah, definitely. But moving on to Best Alternative Song, runner-up that I put forward was Heir Apparent by American Football. I just love how all the different instruments come together in this lush soundscape. You've got the guitar line coming in and out, the piano and flute in counter to each other. It's just such a lovely arrangement.
Yeah, which accompanies quite downbeat lyrics and Mike Kinsella's improved vocal performance. He's come on leaps and bounds, though. I think it really does fit with the cinematic nature of this album.
Yeah, absolutely lush.
Other runner-up we've got is Warm Guts by Thelma, and Thelma, she does phasing in her music like nobody else I've heard. Everything, it just feels like incredibly free, unrestrained by the conventions of modern pop music, which is just how I like it. Absolutely unafraid in this track to experiment with dissonance and unconventional drum patterns, which I also love. A great
Yeah,
track.
it's a lovely, quirky track. What's our winner for Best Alternative Song, Nick?
Our winner for Best Alternative Song is Harmony Hall by Vampire Weekend.
Yay!
It's so catchy. It's so catchy, Joe. With the guitar line in it makes me blush with how flattering it is. The piano part has this rhythmic feel to it, taking on both the rhythmic layer and the melody layer. It just adds to how much I want to dance to the track. You have these two separate bridge sections with like the piano and guitar solos, which just both like glittery, shiny, not showy, but just
Sparkly.
sparkly.
It's
Oh, and it's. Did I mention it's catchy?
catchy and
It's
it's
so
lovely.
catchy. It's great. It makes me want to sing harmonies to it.
Ah, very
Let's move
well.
on though to the final genre category we have, which is Best Pop Album.
Yes.
To begin with, we have got Aurora, who has been mentioned on this list once already, with A Different Kind of Human Step 2. I've already mentioned Aurora's voice. It's amazing. It's magnificent. It's haunting. It's amazing. But on this album, she just sort of pairs that with this. It's just really uplifting and beautiful sounds, which is only let down slightly by the underlying narrative getting a little lost. Otherwise, I hope that this is the sort of sound that pop artists choose to move their sound in the direction of, rather than just Sophie and Charlie XCX. I want to see a bit of diversity in the genre.
Yeah, definitely. Another runner-up that I've put forward is Igor by
Don't
Tyler.
you do it, Joe? Don't
by
you do
Tyler
it?
the Creator.
Oh no!
Yeah, that's right. What you gonna do? What you gonna do? I'm calling it a pop album because I think this is more of a pop album than it is a hip hop album. It's got lots of catchy hooks, sweet, sugary sounding passages, and I think it excels at doing all those things as well. So yeah, very worthy runner-up for best pop album.
You can't see it right now, but I am gritting my teeth, rolling my eyes. Not the winner though.
It's not the winner because our winner is "'Cause I Love You" by Lizzo.
who wins 2019. Well
Pretty
done,
much.
Lizzo. You are the winner of 2019.
This album has so many great tracks on it, and as well as so many varied tracks as well.
Jerome,
Jerome is funny and
Jerome,
touching. The opening track, "'Cause I Love
take your
You."
ass home.
Take it all the way home.
Come back when you're grown.
Yeah, but like I said, there's so many great tracks. "'Cause I Love You," the opening track is bold, it's daring. Juice is such a tightly composed pop song. Lingerie is a touching ballad. Heaven Help Me, like Heaven Help Me is good. It's
She's a very talented woman, is Lizzo.
oh,
With those pipes.
those
Wow.
pipes, yeah,
That flow in her raps.
yeah,
That flute.
that flute.
That flute.
And not to mention, her music is just dripping with her personality as well, and it's all the more memorable because of it.
I highly recommend that you all go and you watch Lizzo's performance at Glastonbury
Yeah,
last year. It's
yeah,
a joy.
yes, and definite worthy winner of Best Pop Album this year. But moving on to Best Pop Song.
Yes.
A song that I put forward was "Ghostin" by Ariana Grande, which I think sees her as at her most vulnerable, given the death of her ex-lover. It creates quite an emotional context for this song, but I think what makes it so affecting for me is that she doesn't over-egg the emotion. She's just honest with the conflict of feeling that she's feeling within herself. And for me, that makes it all the more memorable, really. It just feels real, and combined with these quite soft, simple synth backings, that's still very pleasant to listen to. It's made an experience that I haven't forgotten this year.
It's a very mature track.
Definitely, definitely.
I'll tell you what's not a mature track. Next runner up we have "Want You in My Room" by Carly Rae Jepsen. Oh boy. It's like, have you ever had a song that just makes you smile without fail every time you listen to it?
Yeah,
Oh, super danceable track by Carly. So catchy. Just a sax. It's got a sax solo in it, Joe.
yeah.
It's got a sax solo
Who
in
doesn't
it.
love them?
And the way it uses second person with its come hither approach to lyricism, it just makes you feel really special.
I want you in my room, on the bed, on the floor. He's so cool. But it wasn't quite our winner for Best Pop Song.
Yes, I still don't entirely know how this happened,
Oh, I know.
but here we go.
I know how this happened. Our winner is "Elevator Girl" by Baby Metal. And yeah, this is pop metal. I don't know what Poppy and that are trying to achieve with pop metal these days, but this is a real damn great pop metal
Yes.
track. It's gold.
Metal Galaxy wasn't a good album, but this was a hell of a good song.
It's a hell of a good song. The riffs are meaty and just and the chorus is catchy as hell.
Best chorus of the year? Question mark?
Question mark,
Question
potentially.
mark. Another track that never fails to make me smile. Joe, how about that bass?
How about that bass?
It is very, very, very chunky.
It is chunky, it's good, and what have you thought about pop metal before? Just give this track a try. It is.
It bridges the gap between both worlds very well.
Yeah, it does. Worthy winner.
Worthy winner. Well done to Baby Metal.
Yes.
Well, we're out of the genre awards, Joe.
Yes, but we still have some best picks in miscellaneous
Yeah, we've
categories.
got another half podcast to go.
I know. So moving swiftly on, we have some best artwork picks for 2019.
Yes, artwork, that thing that famously translates well over into podcasts.
Yeah. But I decided to go with "Air Ni Ni" by Hakushi Hasegawa, which we've already given an award to. This album artwork is a very pleasing visual representation of the madness and chaos contained within the record itself. But if you kind of look at the cover, everything from the bonsai tree to the chair, of all things, are very kind of particularly designed and put together in such chaos. And I think that's a really cool reflection of the album itself. So I like it.
I'm glad.
I like it.
Well, I went for the album artwork of an album I haven't actually listened to. I haven't heard great things about it, so I'm just going to look at the album artwork and admire it.
Yeah.
And that will be it. Time of the Healer, Bright Curse. So, it's, metal albums like using paintings on their covers. And this one I just think it just raises a lot of questions. It makes me want to know more about it.
Yeah.
I mean, besides the painting being pretty good, it is a sort of a riverbank with a strange sort of dryad creature, a large dryad creature, sort of rising out of it, joining onto the bank,
Yeah.
and it's just kind of I look at it and I just sort of see more of it, and I just want to know more about
Yeah,
it.
it's almost like a swamp coming alive.
Yeah. Like, is it a good creature? Is it a bad creature?
I mean,
What does it want?
it's metal. It's probably
Yeah,
going to eat everyone.
but it's covered in sort of like pondweed and such, and it just it's just beautiful,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah, it
Really
is.
admire it. So well done to Bright Curse. Your music may not be good, may be good, I don't know, but you did a damn good album cover.
Yes, well done.
Right, well, we're now into the sections that you really wanted to hear us talk about.
Yes, best songs of 2019, and I guess we'll just alternate our picks then.
Yeah.
Um,
Joe has been waiting to talk about this specific track all year.
My first runner up is Squidward Knows by Cupcake. And you know what? You know what? Something I've realized pretty much over just the last few years is that I shouldn't discredit comedy songs as being like, some kind of lesser, not quite as, serious. Well, I suppose they are less serious, but not as worthwhile as more serious work. Because sometimes they're genius. Sometimes, and I
And this
stand.
is not one of those songs.
Yes, it is. This, you know what? I stand by this song being a masterpiece. It's fun. The backing is fun. It's catchy and serves the song brilliantly. And you know what? I will get to the lyrics in a later
Oh, God,
category.
he is, isn't he? He's going to read
But
them all out.
but trust me, they're good.
They
So
are good. I love this track. It's a brilliant track. Masterpiece, I'm not sure. I feel like it is slightly too depraved for me to be able to call it that. Well, fifth place is a track we have already actually talked about, Warm Guts by Thelma. I realised kind of late into the year that I'd forgotten to add this onto my best tracks list, so I kind of forgot about it a bit, and in putting it on it, it rose up the rankings very quickly to the point that it's landed in this fifth spot. Um, I mean, I've already talked partly about what I love so much about it, but there are just other things that I will mention, like the way that the track ventures into eerie territory, but not in such a way that it becomes jarring to the rest of the track, which is quite pleasant. The tone of the guitar is perfect, capable of being really gentle when needed, but when the track builds, there's an edge to it, which is just
yeah,
it just puts me on the edge of my seat. And Velma never feels like she's trying really hard with the composition, which I love. Everything is placed perfectly, and it never feels like it's being constructed. Like, the track is phased strangely, but it doesn't feel like she's deliberately gone, oh, I'm going to make a track that's a bit zany.
mm.
It all falls into place.
It's quirky and it feels like an honest representation of her character more than
Exactly.
anything.
I will note that just now that I have misspelt it on my notes and called it Warm Guys. Do love me some warm guys.
Yeah, it's same. All right, then, moving on, I have my next runner-up, which is Time Machine by Mini Mansions. And this song has such a wonderful, fantastical backing. To me, it feels as though you're being transported through this fairy tale with beautifully arranged, arpeggiated and sequenced synths. And then paired with the lyrics, it feels to me like one of the most honest love songs I've heard all year. It makes my heart warm, and that's a very difficult thing to do.
Oh, Joe.
So yeah, I honestly wouldn't mind playing this song at my wedding if I ever have one.
We'll all be dead by then.
Probably.
Well, next up in my fourth place, I have got Copeland with the track Night Figures. And while the album was a little too much for me at times, I've never heard a song which interprets love in such a dreamlike way before. The atmosphere of Night Figures just swallows me up, allowing me to just fully embrace this romantic feeling within. The electronics on the track are fully formed. The vocal performance is just gorgeous on the track, and the strings just wash over you throughout. And then the track just suddenly it explodes unexpectedly with these electronic blasts, which are really powerful, leading into this siren-like tremolo guitar, which is captivating. And I often speak of the way that music can plant imagery in my head, but this track is like an entire short film. I can just perfectly picture every moment as it happens in the track. It's just breathtaking.
Yeah. Brilliant. My next runner-up is Only You by Hakushi Hasegawa. I got to admit there is some bias towards me liking this track, just given the kind of Shibuya K influence in this song. I mean, partly because it's a genre that isn't very big and expansive, it more kind of influenced other Japanese music. But this song is so. It just has this abundance of sugary, catchy melodies, followed by this zany, jazzy backing. It's just absolute bliss for me, absolute ear candy, and the odd rhythmical phrases thrown in as well. Just it's so chaotic and lovely. I love
I
it.
love chaotic, lovely things.
Yes, I'm definitely a chaotic good question mark. Would you say I'm a chaotic good?
I'd say you're neutral good.
Neutral good? Okay,
I think you want to be chaotic good, but you're not.
okay.
My third place goes to Kitty Kitty by Distat. So this was one of the first songs we talked about in the year. This came out back in January. The song grabs your attention and refuses to let go. It's like you're being held by the shoulders by it, and it won't release. The production on the track is super hard hitting and oddly hypnotic, which I think works well with its Trump era analyzing lyrics. It's catchy in a way that I can listen to it and I apply the rhythm to like things going on around me, like people walking or cars going by. It's really
Hmm.
odd. Not satisfied with just having these amazing catchy verses though. The track really kicks it up a notch with the bridge and then the outro because the bridge is exceptionally grand. Like I get images in my head of like a leader addressing a square of adoring followers while planes are flying overhead, and it's got these really tasty drum fills in it. But then it kicks it up even further with some of the best distortion I've heard all year, getting more and more intense over the sounds of a shouting crowd as things are obviously becoming more violent within the track. And then the bass drum starts punctuating through the sound of the crowd, creating even more imagery that I don't even really want to think about. And it just gets so destructive in the end. It gets louder and louder and more distorted. It is just breathtaking.
It's a fantastic track.
Yeah,
I agree. My last runner-up is Jirdum by Shina Ringo, which, I mean, this song to me is just so much fun to listen to. It's an impeccably well-arranged jazzy chamber pop with this infectiously fun melody and a catchy dissonant piano motif through the song, which is kind of light-hearted and comical in its own way. And then it's topped off by one of the most lush passages of music at the end of the song with a beautiful vocal harmonies and woodwind intertwining with each other. I love it.
I'm glad.
I love it.
Good for you. My second place goes to Want You in My Room by Carly Rae Jepsen.
I want you in my room, on the bed, on the floor.
I've spoken a lot about this track, so I won't spend much time on it. But all I can say is that it makes me really happy and it's just what I need.
It is a great pop track. My first place, however, another song we've already mentioned, Summer of 42 by Kishibashi. We've already talked about it, so I'll keep it brief. This song has stolen my heart a number of times. This is quite painful.
Did you get it back?
Yeah. Luckily, it takes a few minutes, but yeah, its arrangement is just ridiculously good, and the whole narrative of the track gives me all of the feels.
So dynamic.
Oh, I love it so much. And well, yeah, I can only just keep referring back to the bridge with the cascading string arrangement, his incredible falsetto. Oh, it's so gorgeous, so gorgeous. So yeah, that is my number one song of the year, Summer of 42.
My number one song of the year is still my number one song of the year from last time we talked about it. Low Slow by Laura Stevenson. So, Laura Stevenson is one of my favourite voices ever. Slightly nasal, yet stunningly proficient, which makes it just feel really human. I get so enchanted by her voice. You'd be, I think, mistaken to call the backing in the opening verses minimal, as they layer together perfectly and somehow manage to not just accompany her vocals, which are the main feature, but enhance them. The tempo of the track is emotion-stirringly perfect, and the intimacy achieved through it is just staggering. It never rushes. It takes its time, and the climax of the song is just one of my favorites ever. The way she sings "Embrace Yourself and Fall into the Air" is just flooring. Joe mentioned it earlier.
Yeah.
It's such a remarkable vocal performance at that moment. The lyrics in the song appear to be about a very specific person, but the way she uses second person, much like Carly Rae Jepsen, it'll just convince you that she's singing about you and she's singing about your achievements. I love this track. I've listened to it so many times
Yeah.
this year, and I will listen to it again and again and again.
I basically co-sign everything Nick just said. It is a fantastic track. Ah,
I'm glad we got through that bit. Let's take a brief moment of respite before we get to the grand best
yes.
albums of 2019.
Yes, we've got a few best moments.
Best moments.
A bit more, just like this moment was particularly good.
Yeah, we
And
we chose three each, and then I chose like 10 honourable mentions.
okay, do you want to go through your
I'll go through my
honourable?
honourable mentions first of all. So I've already mentioned Kitty Kitty, the dissonant crunches followed by the max distortion. The bit in Penny Rabbit and Summer Bear by Kishi Bashi goes Summer Bear, which is amazing. Baroness, the song Seasons, where it all just gets so loud at the end. The transition into Please Don't Leave Me and then into An Angel of Great and Terrible Light on Uboa. The horns in A Moment of Clarity by Her Name is Kala. New Inertia by Falls of Roars, the blast beat in that. I really want a dog! And then Dyson Ball by Bats, which has just the most unexpected and chaotic sax solo I've heard this year.
Yes, yes. I'm actually going to put in a best moment now, and that is the opening guitar solo in Kilimanjaro by La Speranza. This guitar solo is so moody but so skillful. It's absolutely gorgeous to listen to and an absolute standout moment from La Speranza's soulful debut album.
My first best moment is the flooring instrumental barrage that comes in Fool's Game by Glenn Hansard. I remember the first time listening to this album on my way home from work. Just sort of Fool's Game starts off quite a calm track, and I was just sort of walking along, looking at the cows in the field, being all happy, and then suddenly it's so loud, so striking, such a gut punch of emotion. Oh, it's so joyous. I love it.
I wonder what the cows made of it.
They probably couldn't hear.
Probably. I wonder what they would have made of your change of character as you heard it.
It was probably me walking along, then suddenly going, ah!
Yes, but it is a fantastic moment. Absolutely. I've actually picked my next best moment as what I think is the best chorus of the year, and that's Heaven Help Me by Lizzo, because it's so bouncy, infectious, and the lyrics are great.
It is.
You want me to sing it?
No,
Okay, I won't.
because it's Lizzo. No one sings Lizzo as well as Lizzo sings Lizzo.
Okay.
So you should just go and
Okay.
listen. As you probably heard from me singing Jerome earlier,
Yeah.
not as good as Lizzo. Well, I'm going to mention it again. Low Slow by Laura Stevenson. The bit where she sings Fall into the Air is goosebump raising, like to
Yeah.
the point you could see them through cloves. Like it's just the most emotional moment of the year for me.
I sent a Snapchat of me lip syncing it to Nick once.
I was already crying before I opened it.
And my last best moment of the year is a track we haven't, or an artist we haven't mentioned yet, which is We Travelled Far by Gavin Greenaway, modern classical composer. The track is such a calm and languid atmosphere, but then 3 minutes 45 into the track, there's such a quiet crescendo, and then there are these like tinkling descending piano notes, which to me are just absolute ear candy. And
Nice little bit of glissando.
oh, it's so lovely. It's so lovely. I've enjoyed listening to that time and time and time and time again.
Well, as you've probably heard, I had many great moments from this year, and I spent a long time trying to think of what would come into the third slot. And in the end, it's not it's not a moment I would have typically considered, but it's a moment of lyricism that I sing along to every single time I hear it, no matter what. It is Hedges by Epic Beardmen, and it's the bit at the end of the first verse where he goes, I think we need to face it. I got a neighbor who I think may have some people in
In
the
the
basement.
basement. Oh. And then those ominous synths come in as well.
Yeah,
It's like, ooh,
I got a
tense.
neighbor. But it's just, I can't help myself. I have to sing it every time it
Yeah,
happens.
yeah, absolutely.
It takes a lot of skill to make lyrics that are that like important to a
Yeah,
song.
yeah, and they're just so quotable. I mean, well, not quotable. I don't go around saying that to people.
You just walk up to people.
I've got a
You know
neighbor.
what they say. I got a neighbour who I think may have some people in the basement.
But you know what I mean. I just it's iconic. It's iconic.
It is.
Kind of best moment adjacent. I've decided to add a category of best drumming of 2019 because I think there have been several fantastic moment for drumming this moments. Fantastic moments for drumming
This is why we're
this
ending the
year.
podcast.
I can't
We can't
speak. We
speak.
can't speak. There have been several fantastic moments for drumming this year, more than I can think of for any other year of this quality. Um, the first one I thought of was by Thank You Scientist, a band which I've claimed I wish I could like more than I do, but in the one track they have, Everyday Ghost, around 35
But
seconds
they only
in.
have one track.
Sorry?
That one track they have.
The one track that I'm going to mention.
Okay.
That they have
Considering how long Thank You Scientist songs are, it wouldn't surprise me if they had one track and it was just like
it
six
was
hours long.
Yeah, yeah, to be fair. This is a positive podcast. It's positive. 35 seconds into Everyday Ghost by Thank You Scientist. The jazzy brass goes crazy, but the drumming underneath it, my goodness, it could take my soul, rip it apart, put it back together, and shove it back in my throat. Like, it is good. It is damn good, that drumming. It just adds to that sense of aleatoric chaos, which is one of the things I like most in jazz.
It's
So
one of those types of drumming that just makes you invoke hyperbole. You just can't help
I
yourself.
can't help myself. The next pick I had was The End of Open Secret by Sheena Ringo, which was a bit of an odd release as a standalone song, but it is an incredibly well put together jazz pop track. But then right at the end, like it's like, oh, we're gonna end the song. Oh, nope, nope. 10-second drum fill, that's absolutely fantastic. And then we're going to end the song. But one of my favourite things about it is the video, and call me prejudiced or what have you, but I just love that it's played by this grumpy looking middle-aged man who looks like a complete nerd as well. He's just there just drumming like this and then boom. It just makes me laugh. But yeah, fantastic moment. You've got a pick as well for best drumming. Do you want to?
I do, but I'm
Yeah.
also gonna tell you I'm gonna use one of your picks because I actually introduced you to it.
Okay, fair
So
enough.
I'm gonna mention Infant Annihilator next
Okay, go on.
with the track Free Bastards. There's a bit about 2 minutes 30 into it.
Yeah.
What is it? It's the most unnecessary, stupid, ridiculous, awful, but somehow incredible drum fill to ever happen. It starts off sounding like it's going to go into a drum solo, and then just turns into mad kick pedal wankery
Yeah.
for about 3 seconds.
But considering the over the top nature of the song and what they do, it just works. And
Yeah,
that kind of Igor style,
it's there to make you laugh.
and it does make me laugh, and it's also brilliant at the same time. So definitely a pick for best drumming moment. And also, I wanted to give a shout out to Ridiculous Heart by David Gray, which I did mention on an episode. But it has my favourite drum pattern, which pretty much goes throughout most of the song. But it's one of those echoing, light, dynamic drum patterns which absolutely hypnotises me. Yeah, and that's what I have to say about it.
I'll mention one more before Joe's final one, which I actually added in myself because he missed it. Black Midi. No matter what Joe thinks of the album, he cannot deny that the drumming on Black Midi songs is incredible.
Very good.
especially years ago, the penultimate track in the bridge and the end verse, and throughout really, but it's in the bridge and the end verse that it really shines through. The end verse has some absolutely phenomenal and insane drum fills in it. Super fast, super powerful.
Mm, absolutely. But then our last pick for best drumming, we've kind of already mentioned it. Lux Eterna by Motorpsycho.
Yeah, like it needs to be listened to be believed. I have no idea how anyone drums that well.
Drums that well and embeds it within the structure of the song as well, and it's just the way the drum fills from the one chorus to the verse is just it's so damn good.
That drum fill at the end of the song is amazing.
It's amazing
because you think the song's
yeah.
ended, you think the song is finished, and then like there's just a few little.
Then final chorus.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good.
Highly recommend it. Okay, Joe, you wanted to talk about the best lyrics of 2019.
Yes, I have put one song forward, and that is Squidward Knows by Cupcake. And don't worry, I'm not going to reel off the whole song. I've picked five lyrics, which is,
I think I already know what 3 of them are.
Okay, I mean, the first one is basically the chorus to the song. His dick's smaller than my toes. I'd rather ride Squidward Nose.
If you've ever watched the music video for Squidward Knows, that bit is shown.
It's hilarious. Oh, I love it. Oh, but then another one, and I think this shows some pretty good lyricism. Well, of course it is. From Cupcake's part, my eyelash flew off when I saw that dick was too soft. The visual imagery of her just it's so good. The third pick from that song, Sex Occasion, nipples like raisins. I black out on that dick, but my cum is Caucasian.
So those are the 3 I thought you were going to say.
Fourth on that song, sucking on that dick make my lipstick slip off, so can I wear your cum as clear lip gloss. Oh dear. And then quite possibly my favourite on this album, because I am a Gemini myself. What, wanna fuck another girl? Are you dumb? I'm a Gemini, so that's really a threesome. Oh, it's so good. Oh, I love that song. And I will stop talking about it now.
I have some picks too. I got quite a few together. So the first one is from Heir Apparent by American Football. Selfishness is inherited like skinny lips and tattoos. Then also I have Pride Parade by Russian Girlfriends. You raise your book, you look so shook that love transcends the status quo, a compassion your God has never known. Oof! Following that, Moment of Clarity by Her Name is Kala, which is probably one of the most like spine-tingling moments of lyricism this year as he howls, and that sound is the crunch of a human spirit breaking.
Absolutely.
Very visceral. Following that, Backwards by King's Kaleidoscope, which we don't think we mentioned how good the lyrics were on that album.
Not specifically.
They are very good lyrics.
They're very, very
The
good.
one that reminds me, that comes into my mind the most is struck out on my quest, turned around and took 2 steps backwards. I think that's just, it's such a great way of summing up faith, I guess. Following that, I wanted to mention this one. I'm glad it came in somewhere. There's a track that came out this year by a band called Mess called Whole Again. The album itself I wasn't over the moon about, but this track in particular really struck me. The line is, watched your parents turn their pain into a flood. It swept you up. A love like that always eats its young. It's not a happy track. It's a really sad track, and it's a very emotionally powerful track. And finally, I also want to mention Boys in the Better Land by Fontaine's DC, with the line that comes at the beginning of the song. The radio's on about a runaway model with a face like sin and a hand like a James Joyce novel. Great stuff.
Yeah.
Well, there's one more category before we get to the big one.
Yes, best lolcows.
The Joe patented lolcow.
The lolcow, the funny. I don't claim patent to it, but you know what? Here we go. My first pick is Oh Imagine by Baby Metal. Nick already mentioned that the album itself wasn't that great. There are a couple of very questionable choices, and therefore I'm going to do an impression of what goes on Oh Imagine.
I'm just looking at Cubase in front of me, and the levels have just spiked.
It's so bizarre. It's such a bizarre moment. The first time I heard it, it just sent me reeling. I couldn't stop laughing. It's like they wanted to do this kind of like pirate themed song, maybe, question mark.
Maybe.
But oh my goodness, it was hilarious.
Oh, my first one that I wanted to mention, the one that came to my mind first of all when looking at Lol Cows was as an artist called Jumex. I remember nothing about what I listened to by them. I gave it a 3 out of 10,
Yeah.
so
Is
it
that
can't
kind
be
of
that
like
good.
emo trap kind of?
Was that it? I can't remember.
Yeah.
All that I remember is that the final track on it was called Billie Eilish, and that in itself, I think, is just hilarious.
Yeah. My next pick for funny was Don't Throw Away My Legos by AJR.
An album which I think got more hate than it deserved. Wasn't
I
great.
agree.
Wasn't a great album, but not a dreadful album.
I agree. And it had some funny moments, like something about a birthday party, I remember. That was funny.
Thank you for coming to my birthday party. I am 1 minute old today, and everything is going great. And I hope it stays that way.
It's kind of it's dumb and it's funny at the same time. So yeah. Yeah, funny.
Yeah. Next, I've got one that came from a car journey that I shared with Joe, where we decided to listen to something new that had come out recently, and we settled on the new Kaiser Chiefs album, Duck. The first chorus that appears on that album fits into just about every single other song on the album.
We were just singing the first chorus melody over every single song we could.
It is absolutely bizarre. It just fits every
Yeah.
time. What a creatively bankrupt album.
Yeah. Absolutely. But we got some funny out of it, so
Yes.
what you gonna do?
I'm a little concerned about the next pick you've got. I'm hoping that you're laughing at this rather than laughing with it.
Oh, I'm laughing at it.
Good.
It's Earth by Lil Dicky. And don't get me wrong, I think we should be preserving our planet. I agree with the messaging of the song, but it's such a dumb song. And it's so horrible. It's so saccharine, and they got someone else to voice act Kanye West in it, which I don't. Oh, it's one of the bizarrest things I've ever seen. Like, if you're gonna do advocacy songs, like, please make them good, because otherwise people want to destroy the planet. It's, yeah,
If destroying this planet means we get rid of Little Dicky, then
perhaps that's what
perhaps
needs
it's
to
what needs to
happen.
do. My next one is Annotations of an Autopsy with the song Murder off of their World of Sludge EP. There's a bit in it where a drill sergeant starts shouting. I'm assuming it's a drill sergeant. It could just be a youth from like East London.
Yeah,
I can't really make out what they're saying, but they're like sort of shouting abuse, and then they start shouting abuse in rhythm with the song, and it doesn't sound right. It sounds dumb.
it
It sounds
sounds
really dumb
It sounds dumb and funny.
and funny. I don't think it was meant to be.
Yeah. My next pick is a bit of an obscure pick. Can't Say I Ain't Country by Florida Georgia Line. And you get a lot of bro country music out there. This was just such an absolute, why is the word escaping me? It felt like a parody of it, but it was genuine, and that's just what made me laugh so much about it. Because in the song itself, they literally reel off like country stereotypes about themselves, and then they're like, "Yeah, can't say I ain't country." Just like, okay, country boy.
Settle down.
Yeah.
Well, next up for me is Mac DeMarco from his very, very disappointing album from last year, Here Comes the Cowboy, with the opening title track, Here Comes the Cowboy, which is weird. It's the same, what is it, 10 seconds maybe of guitar repeated for 3 minutes, and at the end of each one he goes, Here comes the cowboy.
And you know what? The cowboy never
Cowboy
arrives.
never arrives. It's just that again and again and again and again. It's so dull and such a weird way to open the album.
Yeah.
And I also would like to mention the final track on the album. I can't remember what it's called because I don't give a shit about the album. But like just hearing Mac DeMarco go yeehaw,
Yeah,
very entertaining.
it's practically the only saving grace of the album. I mean, let's
Yeah.
be honest. Yeah. Next up, I've got Dropout by Lil Pump, which dropped out then I got rich. Dropped out.
Drop that now. I'm richer than your mum.
It's dumb, but it's funny. I give him credit for that. Made me laugh.
That album did have some surprising high points on it.
Yeah.
It wasn't all terrible, even though some of it definitely was.
Yes, if we were doing a worst of podcast, then Stripper Name would definitely be on there. But this is a positive podcast. So.
Posicast.
Posicast.
Well, I've got more than you, so I'm going to list off a couple now.
Okay.
The skip track "Yo" from Denzel Curry's latest album "Zoo" is hilarious. I can't mimic it, but you would need to listen to it. It's only a minute long. It is very funny. And Black Midi with the track "Years Ago," which made it into the best drumming section. At the end of that track, it just ends with the whole band going ah, and it sort of gets low, like it gets further and further away, and then you just hear the sound of like splashing water, like the band has fallen down a well. It's incredibly funny.
Yeah. My next pick is one that we have already talked about, Jerome by Lizzo.
Jerome,
Take your ass home. It's just funny. Love you, Lizzo.
Jerome's a scrub. A track that didn't make it onto this list, even though like I think it is probably just as good as Hedges. Epic Beardmen's track Shin Splints is about them trying to get to the airport on time to catch their plane and all the shenanigans that go on around that. And it is very, very comical. There are a lot of great lines in it that I absolutely love, and it's probably my most listened to track from that album this year. It is. I think I like it as much as Hedges. We put Hedges as being like number one because we had to pick one, but
yeah,
that's one of the funny ones from the album. And then I think it's the first album I actually listened to this year, possibly the first track I listened to this year. Treasures from their album Relationships, which was quite. I thought it was better than I thought it was going to be. The first track's Mystery is your typical sort of modern metalcore track, and then a sax solo comes in completely out of nowhere, fits surprisingly well, and I was just astounded. It just made me laugh.
And on the topic of funnies, I'm just going to shout out Squidward Nose again because why not?
Very funny.
Funny song.
I want to mention one more funny that is sort of music related. Didn't take place in music this year, but you remember there was that film Yesterday, which was about the person who is the only person who remembers the Beatles. Ed Sheeran appears in that film, and Ed Sheeran appears in that film as the modern day musician who is everything that's wrong with music. Like he's there going, "Hey Jude doesn't sound right. How about you call it Hey Dude?" And I just think the idea of Ed Sheeran portraying himself as what's wrong with modern music is just so fitting.
It really is.
I can't believe he agreed to it.
Yeah.
No, I can believe he agreed to it. I can 100% believe he agreed to it.
Yeah. If we're talking about adjacent musical funny moments, I'm not sure how many people watched The Apprentice, but there was a task in which they had to try and remix a certain song. And there was one person called Lottie who said she could absolutely nail a Kendrick Lamar album. And that had me reeling because...
What does that mean?
I don't know. But she is one of the poshest, countryest... She's like a posh country girl from England.
With emphasis on the cunt.
Yes.
It's our final podcast, I can say that.
Yeah. And when she just said, like, I could nail a pop album or a Kendrick Lamar album, I just, that took me back. I was like...
offended.
My first reaction was like, let me see this. I want to see it happen. So, yeah.
Well, we're to the final category. Best albums of 2019.
Best albums of 2019. Let's go.
I will start because I say so. Well, I'm going to go back and talk about my fifth. I'd like to give an honorary mention to Epic Beard Benders is supposed to be fun because that did get a 9 out of 10 from me, which is, rare.
Yeah.
So props to them for doing it, but not quite making the top 5. So I'm going to talk about the Ballad of Johnny Longstaff by the Young Guns again, which was the first 9 out of 10 I got this year. It's a bit of a weird one for me because I can't really work out whether this album did come out in 2018 or 2019 because folk bands have this thing they do where if you sign up to their mailing list because they're really old fashioned, you get to have their album like 3 months early before its official release. So it was officially put on Spotify in January. So I'm going to count it as a
Yeah.
this year
We
release.
can count it as 2019.
Yeah. So once again, this folk trio primarily singing in a cappella 3-part harmony. The album is pretty well paced for 17 tracks, and the story feels really full and complete on it. It doesn't skimp on any details, but it doesn't like really go overboard into them. I think the lyrics on the album are perfect. They flow perfectly. The rhyming in them is incredibly well done, and I am unashamed to say that I try and sing along to it despite not knowing the lyrics most of the time. And it's an album that just does get me thinking a lot. There is a part where, because throughout the album, it's interspersed with audio clips of the titular Johnny Longstaff doing sort of audio recordings, and at one point he says, "I knew the only person who would be able to stand up to the fascists was me." Along with every other individual out there, and just the idea that it's the collective effort. It's an individual can make a difference, but it's only if every other individual feels they can make a difference. I think about that a lot.
Moving on to my fifth place, which is also Nick's number fourth place. So we'll talk about it. Number fourth place?
Number fourth place.
Number fourth place? There's words.
Yeah.
Is This World Willing by Glenn Hansard. This album is packed with great, swelling, climactic folk pieces from the dramatic first act, with songs like "Don't Settle" and "Fool's Game" to how it goes so lush further on in the album with "Brothers Keeper,"
and then ending on the very traditionally folky, quite sparse "Leave a Light."
Yeah, it's a lovely album.
Hansard makes full use of every instrument at his disposal, and there are a lot of them. Like I on Race to the Bottom, I can't count how many instruments are used in there. The textures just overflow with warmth even at its bleakest moments, and there's a fair amount of interesting compositional choices. Like at the end of Fool's Game, there's a verse that's sung in Persian, which is really really nice.
It's yeah. I would recommend it.
There isn't a single bad song on the album, which for its length I think is quite impressive.
Moving on to my fourth place, I've put Proto by Holly Herndon, because I think this takes the direction of electronic music in a very interesting place. The use of AI, the use of more aleatoric passages, the refinement of making vocoder a bit more tasteful than some other artists. And I think it's an example of an album that takes a new direction instrumentally, but then finds a way to make the lyrics meaningful to it as well. The theme of essentially another life form taking over as dominant is very pertinent, and it creates a narrative which to me is very interesting to muse over as I'm listening to it.
I'm glad you got so much more out of that album than I did. It makes me happy. Moving on to my third place, and my third place album is Animal Choir by Her Name Is Calla, which has gone up in my estimation since hearing it, because before I wasn't sure whether to give it a 8 or a 9, and now it's moved up to third place, so yay.
Yay!
So I think I've already mentioned it a bit, so I'll keep it somewhat brief, but for once again, for the length of the album, it is a long album. I don't think there's a single bad track on it, and I don't get bored while I'm listening to it, which is great. The album flows incredibly well between various stylings, so the transitions are pretty flawless. And I haven't mentioned it yet, but the lyrics on the album I really enjoy when I dig into them. They tell of this sort of post-apocalyptic landscape, and they're really dark and alluring, and Tom Morris's singing voice is the best way to deliver them.
Awesome. Third place from me is also Nick's second place.
So talk about this together.
Yep, it is Zeal by King's Kaleidoscope, which we've already talked about a couple of times.
Yeah, it's so good.
So what I'm going to say is go listen to the Rush trilogy on YouTube, and if you like it, listen to the album because it's so worth the listen.
Yeah, like I think so. Probably the best thing that I can say about this album is that it makes me want to feel the things he feels.
Hmm, absolutely.
Here is my number one pick. Can you guess what it is?
I mean, I already know what it is.
Good point. None of the people we're talking to can actually answer that question. Though, if you listened to the podcast earlier in the year, you can probably guess. Uboa with The Origin of My Depression.
Yes.
This album has also gone up in my estimations because I did say before I didn't feel like I could give it a 10 off of 2 listens. I have managed to listen to it more times since then, and uh, I listened to it one day when I was walking home after a particularly bad day at work, and just generally things weren't going very well in life. And it's not a pleasant experience I felt listening to the album then, but it's an experience that I don't think any other album has given me. I get that it was somewhat situational, but I think that the fact that I could feel that feeling is definitely worthy of attention because this album is the sonic embodiment of the pressure of existence in a world and a body that just doesn't care if you're okay or not, grinding you down until a breaking point is reached.
Hmm.
And every track will leave you feeling hopeless and lost in a different way. And it treads musical ground from these screaming industrial cacophonies to these empty, desolate soundscapes, and yet it always flows through the album in a way that they're noticeably linked.
Yeah,
The,
I think the feeling the album gives is important, but I don't. We definitely shouldn't understate how well architected this album is, because the the absolutely crushing industrial noises always comes at points when you're primed to be crushed, whether that's just out of nowhere or just you've been drained so much that you need to be knocked back even further just to keep yourself alive listening to it.
yeah,
It's
the pain that is poured into this album is pretty unbearable to stand, and I can only hope that some sort of release was found in the artist through doing so. It's not an album that I think should be celebrated, but it's such a remarkable and astonishing work of art that I feel it must in some way be recognised.
yeah.
I would give this album a 10.
I absolutely think that this album should be recognized. Depressing, themes should be explored. I think they should be explored, and this album is a good example of it being explored in a way that's very affecting, and that's what makes it so good, really. So
Yeah,
good.
it's. I mean, on a more basic level, it's really well produced for someone working by themselves. I imagine mostly. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's all produced by Uboa, and it is quite astonishing how visceral the album is, how much of a gut punch it is. The use of sounds in it, like the way that she manages to incorporate a shotgun blast into one of the songs without it sounding really cheesy, is
Mm.
in itself really impressive.
Yeah, it's an incredible feat. It really is. It is also my second place
Yeah,
album
I,
of the
I, I
year.
started talking and I didn't let you say that. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I I I co-sign pretty much everything you say on that album. It is a fantastic album. My first place, however, I do give to Trust in the Life Force of the Deep Mystery by The Comet is Coming, and I did decide to give this one first place in the end because I'll be honest, in my top five, it was really, really very close between all five of them. But I decided to give it to this one because I think it takes a lot of ingenuity to push a genre in a completely new direction, which I do think this album does in a very compelling way. From the way it combines rock riffs into the saxophone, the harmonies that you commonly see in electronica music being shifted over to jazz, a more jazzy environment. It creates a sonic atmosphere that's really interesting, and I think completing the way the album experience is the theme of birth and rebirth, from the more calm bookends of the album to the intensity and the exploration that goes on in the middle section of the album. I think it just has this narrative arc that is really satisfying. And that's not to mention, the skill that goes in all of the sax playing. The drums are fantastic throughout.
Oh yeah, drums are amazing.
Drums are
Drums probably
fantastic.
should have been mentioned on the best drumming list, to be honest.
It really probably should have. And I think it conveys all of the moods, even though they're instrumental tracks, the titles and the mood of the song give you all of the mental imagery that you want in this space age version of jazz. So
Space jazz.
space jazz. I
It's
love
the
it.
only genre of jazz that I want to hear from now on.
Yes. I highly recommend this to anyone who wants to listen to the cutting edge of music.
There is one last thing that I feel we need to mention before we wrap up.
Is it Squidward Knows again?
No, but that is something that everyone should pay attention to. I want to give a shout out to Comethazine. I want to give out a shout out to Comethazine because I didn't really know whether to place this moment in the best album artwork section or the lolcow section because it's kind of the anti of both. Comethazine, you somehow managed to make 3 terrible, terrible album artworks, like startlingly bad, over the past year. And for that, you do need to be recognised in some way.
Boo!
Boo! Well, that's the final podcast. We kind of decided that it is a bit too much.
Yeah.
We don't hate doing the podcast. In fact, I've really enjoyed doing the podcast.
Same.
But there comes a time when it is important to put your own mental well-being ahead of trying to constantly create. And I don't feel like if we can put forward our best selves into making these podcasts, then that's letting you guys down.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and I have had a lot of fun from the games we've done, the covers we've done, just general reviewing, listening to good music, maybe having an argument every once in a while. It's always been fun talking about music, and I really hope that you listeners have enjoyed listening to us and perhaps have been exposed to some new music. But thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you very much.
All of you, even that one person from Croatia.
Yeah, that one person from Croatia, whoever you are, we love you the most. Signing off for the last time, I've been Nick.
I've been Joe.
And this has been F Sharp A Sharp Revisited.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
So, to summarise, Adorno's theory is that all you talentless hacks... Am I boring you, Mr. Lito? Well, now you get to find out what this button does. Where was I? Oh yes. All you talentless hacks are beyond my help, because you have been brainwashed by an ever-increasing tidal wave of shitter and shitter music. To be honest, the only reason you're all here is because I am a sadist. Now, homework. I don't know. Stick rusty forks in your eyes and film it. Yeah, that'll do nicely. Good. See you all tomorrow. Oh, and Mr. I Am, please take Mr. Lito's remains to the canteen. Right. Let's take a look at the in tray. A letter from the podcast. They're shutting down the gulag. Excellent. Now I can finally return to my first love, dentistry. Attention, idiots. I'm leaving. Please feel free to return to your disgusting careers.
F Sharp A Sharp Revisited.